outside of just never stop learning and always continuing to expand your knowledge in your profession. I think it's important more than any time now is to learn how to build the team around you because that ultimately reflects the entire organization.
This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and here on the podcast, I introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Our guest for this episode is Matt Owen. Matt serves as the Executive Director of Chamber Professionals of Ohio, the statewide association dedicated to professional training, development, coaching, and support for chambers of commerce professionals across Ohio. With more than 2 decades of chamber CEO experience, Matt brings deep expertise in organizational leadership, economic development, and strategic growth. In his role at CPO, he leads statewide strategic planning, professional development programming, advocacy initiatives, partnership development, and major events designed to strengthen Ohio's chamber network. Under Matt's leadership, CPO has expanded its training offerings and enhanced membership engagement and strengthened collaboration with key partners, including the Ohio Chamber of Commerce and regional chamber networks. He's passionate about equipping chamber leaders with practical tools, peer connections, and innovative resources that help them navigate today's rapidly evolving business environment. A collaborative and mission-driven leader, Matt believes that strong chambers build strong communities. He's dedicated to advancing the chamber profession while fostering a supportive statewide network that empowers leaders to grow and lead with confidence. Matt is also a proud U.S. Navy veteran who served aboard the USS Bainbridge as a missile technician. Matt, welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. We're happy to have you with us today. I'd love to give you an opportunity to say hello to all the chamber champions and to share something interesting about yourself as well. And thank you for your service.
Hey, thank you. Big fan, Brandon. Thank you so much for your Chamber Chat podcast and tuned in several times, not only to check out some of my colleagues here in the state of Ohio, but also some of those great champions that are across our country here. So thank you so much for all that you do for the chamber world. I don't know if I have anything exciting to tell you about myself. I've spent almost 26 years in the chamber industry. I guess maybe something that means a lot to me is I've also been a club soccer coach. I was a club soccer coach for 28 years here in the
Wow.
state of Ohio. My dad was a former semi-professional player, obviously a construction worker back then. You didn't make any money playing soccer in America in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But I absolutely love soccer, love what's happening to soccer here in America and how much it's grown over the past 35 years. Big Columbus Crew fan. I will go see FC Cincinnati play as well. But the Crew was here first, so they're near and dear to my heart. So if you see some things up above me here, there's a couple trophies and a couple balls from teams in the past. And I really, really enjoyed it. But I kind of hung up my whistle here a couple years ago, but I do miss it and loved coaching my kids. And I do have one that's in college that is playing soccer right now. So I get to enjoy watching him play. So
That's awesome.
yeah, great.
I'm impressed you're able to coach club soccer and lead chambers, and they both take a lot of time. They both pull you and stretch you thin. So
They do,
I'm
yeah. I
impressed.
was fortunate enough I could control my schedule as a soccer coach a little bit. So we were regional, not a national team. So just traveling around the Midwest was busy enough. But I really, really enjoyed it. The same way I love, obviously, traveling around in our state and helping chambers become more and effective in their communities as well.
Very good. Well, if you would take a few moments and tell us about Chamber Professionals of Ohio, just to give us an idea of what the organization is and what you strive to do, your mission, your purpose, and I think that'll help to set the stage for our conversation today.
Sure. So, Chamber Professionals of Ohio, we are what many states refer to as a CCE, Chamber Commerce Executives. training and development organization. We are housed within the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. Not all chamber training organizations across the country are housed with their state chamber. Some are and some are not. Some stand on their own two legs. Our particular organization's been around for 100 years. We were started in 1916. And then over the years, we've developed ourselves into really just a great organization where the chambers across the state can get not only coaching and professional training, but we offer services such as board development. We also do a lot of strategic planning. And then there's some other fun stuff that we get to do when it comes to how to network, how to control your board in a way in which hopefully is effective, working with your board. And then some things that we have throughout the year that we refer to as our kind of our key events. One is the winter conference that we just came off of in Canton at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We have a Chamber Day in June, which we share host with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. And then later on in the fall, we will do a leadership summit that will just focus on becoming a better and more effective leader in the state.
That's perfect. That definitely stages our conversation very well. So today we'll focus the majority of our conversation around professional development support and the importance of that. And we'll dive into the details of that as soon as I get back from this quick break.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the founders of At My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started At My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
At My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with At My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at atmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Are you ready to take your organization's funding to the next level? Hi, I'm Clint Neesmith, CEO of Resource Development Group. As a Chamber of Commerce or Economic Development Organization leader, I know you understand the value of working with experts who understand your world. And that's exactly what RDG does best. For over 30 years, RDG has specialized in fundraising for EDOs and chambers. We bring cutting-edge strategies tailored to your organization, whether you're just starting out or gearing up for yet another new funding cycle. Importantly, our firm executives are hands-on from start to finish, from the feasibility study to the successful conclusion of your fundraising campaign. And our team brings deep industry roots and national expertise to every engagement. No matter the size of your community, RDG delivers data-driven, innovative revenue solutions, reinforcing ROI to investors and making sure your vision becomes reality. At RDG, we proudly build organizations that build communities. Visit us today at rdgfundraising.com and let us partner with you, building a stronger future for your organization and the community you are working to grow and develop.
Hey, Chamber execs. Are you juggling ribbon cuttings, grant deadlines, membership renewals, and a rogue newsletter that just won't format? That's where Econ DevOps comes in. We're a virtual assistant agency built exclusively for chambers and EDOs. From social media to CRM cleanup, event planning to inbox management, we handle the behind-the-scenes work so you can focus on impact. And here's the best part. We don't just assign a random virtual assistant. We match you with someone who fits your workflow, your communication style, even your level of Type A. Visit econdevops.com or email us at hello@econdevops.com and finally cross hire help off your to-do list. Econ DevOps, helping community champions make a bigger impact.
All right, Matt, we're back. As I mentioned before the break, today we're talking about professional development support, and you're very much in the throes of that. But when you think of chambers, I know you're very tuned in to the chambers in Ohio, but as there's chambers across the country that are listening to this, what are some of the pieces of advice and counsel that you might have when it comes to professional development and really just furthering themselves as chamber professionals? It doesn't say chamber leaders, but professionals across the board as they serve within chambers.
Yeah, I think first it depends on what stage of your career that you're in. If you're just coming into the chamber world and you're in a lead position, such as a CEO or executive director, I really highly encourage you to partner with your state CCE and to get some development and training that you need. They have courses similar in each state, something like your first 100 days in the organization. Those are great courses to have. And there's kind of a checkbox of information that helps you get acclimated in your position. And then from there on into your second, third, and fourth year, there's kind of a stage of development, kind of like rounding the bases in baseball. Once you round first and you start heading to second, so you just took chamber 101 and now you're heading for chamber 201. And those kind of training and development areas in 201 are more mature. You're starting to talk about a little bit more board development, obviously, how to manage your budget more efficiently, how to improve your effectiveness, and not only membership retention, but also how to gain new members. And then really, once you reach a point in your chamber career where you need more extensive training and development and advocacy and being the voice of business, which chambers are for their community and their members, you can start getting into more public policy and government affairs issues. A lot more mature chambers and mature directors feel that that 301 is where you become more of an influencer in your community, a little bit more impact in those areas. And I think that's kind of a general basis of what most CCEs across the way are doing. And if we look at it in hindsight, uh, you come full circle again in your career. 26 years in the industry, I can tell you that with the way things change so fast in the chamber industry, is that I find myself rounding home after rounding third and going back to first base again and starting all over, because the way that membership and retention and the way the foundation of things work, they start to change technology wise. And you can really, really find yourself doing things all over again, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's not always the same. And I think that's what's great about the chamber industry and being in the chamber industry all these years, is that it changes quickly. It changes probably as fast as it's ever changing with technology. But I think our chamber executives out there, especially the ones that get to the point to where they're 10, 12, 13 years in, they kind of get burned out. We talk a lot about, how do you cope with burning out? And I hope that they find ways that are within their organization to get away, refresh, maybe some training and development, maybe some outside conferences will refresh them and get them back on track.
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, I'd seen Kyle Sexton had done I think it was a Facebook or LinkedIn post or something, just with more of a thought exercise of, if I were a new chamber exec, what would I do in the first 100 days? And he went through and broke it down. Who would I meet with? Who would I go visit? What members? What leaders in the community? And just going through it. And then he opened it up. What am I missing? And seeing people's comments on there is, I think it's a good thought exercise, even if you've been in the industry for 10 or 20 years, to kind of take a step back and say, if I were new in this position, what would I do in my first 100 days? And see, are you still in alignment with what you would do if you were new in the community? Are you building those connections? Because ultimately you should get to that influencer in your community step as you're a convener of leaders and influencers within your community. You need to be an influencer. So building it up to there, I love that that's the trajectory that you guys take with these trainings. And burnout, I mean, that is so real. What is as you guys have approached that topic of burnout, what's some practical tips or advice that you can share around that?
Yeah, I think there's a point to where you can step back a little bit. And then I always find that whether it's conferences or whether it's even workshops that you kind of throw yourself back into, um, that are very basic again, and that remind you of, why you fell in love with what you do as a chamber professional, kind of hitting the reset button a little bit. There's obviously vacation is great, but you kind of come back to the same challenges. And those conferences, workshops can sometimes make you look at those challenges in a different angle, in a different approach. I have always found that conversing and networking with my peers, not just here in the Midwest, but networking with them across the country, utilizing those big conferences like ACCE, ASAE, and conferences such as those, they always kind of refresh me. And then if you've been in the industry long enough and you meet somebody that's going through the same struggles that you went through at one time, and you can offer some assistance or some help, it really kind of, and it helps you feel the value of your experience. Chamber world, especially small chambers, can be just a one person show. It could be maybe two people. Many chambers across the state of Ohio here are like that. We have 311 chambers in our state. Many of them are very, very small. They're 250 members or less. They may have either a part-time director or maybe a full-time director with a part-time person, and you're on your own a lot. If you're not used to working that way, it can be very draining and it can be overwhelming. So that kind of support often helps the burnout when you can relate with other chamber professionals, either around you or somewhere else in other parts of the country. It always energized me when I felt like I wasn't alone. Burnout is one big reason, and I'm not just talking about chamber work, but just nonprofit work, especially not nonprofit work in a small environment it can be a huge issue. And we all face obviously the balance of work and your private life. Chamber work is usually extremely busy. My friends and I often say we're 7 to 7, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And it can be that way. Those 55 and 60-hour weeks running a small chamber can really drain you. Uh, but you really do need to find a way to recharge yourself, energize yourself, and find the drive that you had in the beginning and why you kind of fell in love with it. That often helps me. I love chatting with my peers, and I've had some peers that have been around my entire career. A guest of yours, Janet Tressler Davis, who retired
Yeah.
from the Westerville, Ohio Chamber just this past year. Janet was one of those I met early in my career, met her at a conference. She already had several years under her belt. She was one that I could always chime in with, ask questions to, even complain.
That's
And
important. That's important.
and get things off of my mind. And she was great. And then I found out that there's a lot more other resources out there, just like Janet, who can assist you. And I think that's the key in the chamber world is finding that support network. And I want here in our state to know that we can provide that for them as well. I know there's challenges. There's challenges with every organization, whether it's for profit or nonprofit. And sometimes they just need somebody to talk to. And I think one of our big initiatives here is we want to be available for that. We want to be here. We want to listen. It educates us as well to make us a better agency. So yeah, that's a tough one. Burnout is very real and we deal with it a lot. And I think everybody has their own way of dealing with it. And that's just how I dealt with it.
Yeah. So I've had the experience a few times where I talked to a chamber executive and maybe they've been in the industry for some time, maybe some not as long as others, but they maybe have disengaged from going to state conferences or engaging with the continued professional development because, yeah, if you've been to one, you've been to all of them is kind of their attitude. And I don't learn anything, when I go to these things anymore. I've heard a few people say that. And I always have a hard time hearing that because I feel like there's always something to be learned. And usually it's through those relationships you build and being able to bounce ideas and hear different approaches, which is largely why this podcast exists. But what would you say to an individual who might have that kind of mindset? And I'm thinking of it. They're probably not listening to this podcast because they've heard it all and they're not going to learn anything, right? But somebody listening knows who those people are, and how
Yeah.
can we reach them and help them have that open mind thinking?
Yeah, I think two things are very important to that topic that you brought up right there. Is one is you can never stop learning. You can always learn from something, even if you're to the point of your career where you've got, like myself, 20 some years behind you. And the reason why that is because tactics, strategies may seem similar to what you've done in the past, but how you utilize the technology that we're going through another power technology age of
Yeah.
AI. And I really don't want to scare anyone, but it is going to make a huge impact on our industry. I don't know how that's going to affect everything that we do, but if you pick out ways in which that technology can assist you in everyday work, and that's everything from like how you're working with your CRM. It's a lot of data. There's a lot of matrix that go into that. And I feel that if you don't take time to learn that, because our national conference are offering those that type of training now. And then I think too is that I do think for those seasoned veterans out there who might have that attitude of I don't learn anything from those things anymore, well, I think it's your responsibility to give back to the industry. I think it's very, very
I
important.
love that. Yeah.
And I want to give back. I want to give back in the areas in which I struggled and maybe didn't understand, or some things at the time I didn't value enough and didn't pay attention to enough. I think mentors, regardless, are needed out there. So I would encourage a veteran out there in the chamber industry, whether they're a veteran in a regional chamber or a metro chamber that's in a leadership position. You could be a director, a VP, or you could be the CEO. I think it's your responsibility to really help the next generation of chamber leaders by giving back.
Yes. I'm so glad you touched on that with the giving back aspect because there's so much that one has to offer when they have that sort of experience in the industry and making a career out of it. And it's not a place of ego either to say, "Oh, I've been doing this for 40 years. I need to go get." It's not about that, but it's just supporting the industry. It's helping to lift up. It's sharing your experience. I'm a firm believer that as you do that, you keep learning things too. As you share your experience and then hear how the newcomers in the industry see things, there's a convergence that comes together where you're like, I learned something, right? So I think
Exactly.
it happens all the time. What else in the professional development arena do you want to make sure we touch on in this conversation today?
Well, outside of just never stop learning and always continuing to expand your knowledge in your profession, I think it's important more than any time now is to learn how to build the team around you because that ultimately reflects the entire organization. I think right now, what I'm seeing is we're having a little bit of difficulty getting the right board members in place on chamber boards across our state. I'm realizing with my friends in my position in other states are dealing with things such as good board management and what they should be doing. And I want to make sure that I'm clear on this is that, the staff manages and the board governs. And we've really found that that is being mixed up. We've had boards that are what referred to as working boards, and they're kind of getting into the managing portion of it. And it's causing a lot of issues.
Yeah.
The board really needs to know what their role is So educating those boards out there in our state as to be what their role is so they can be more effective in what they do, and then training and developing your chamber leaders to be better executive directors in how to manage. If they grow from, let's say, 300 members to 800 members over the course of, like, let's say 15 years, they're probably going to be doing things like hiring staff members, expanding into areas in which they did not have before, hiring a marketing or a social media person, hiring more membership people. You might have a marketing slash events coordinator now, which is becoming a little bit more normal, is that you'll have a dual role in that area, but also just the fact that they may not know how to manage, and helping them learn how to manage and lead their staff, I see, has become a gap in our leadership qualities here.
Yeah.
And we want to bridge the gap. We want to make them better managers, better effective leaders of their organization, especially when it's growing. And you're going to go through growing pains. If you're doing well, and you're expanding and you're adding more programs at your Chamber of Commerce and more non-dues revenue is coming in, you're in a great position to grow. In some chamber executive directors, they don't know how to grow, and when it comes to staff, and hopefully we can bridge the gap with that as well. So those are some of
Yeah.
the areas in which I think we need to be better at, and I'm realizing that in my position in our organization here in Ohio, we need to be better in addressing those needs as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. In fact, our previous episode was all about board development, the relationship between the chamber executive and the board, because there is some muddy water in between there where maybe you have an overreaching board or maybe a chamber executive who doesn't know how to quite, control or interact with, we'll say, with their board. So when it comes to board development and training, what resources, what outlets would you put out there as options for chamber staff to be able to help their board understand? Because it doesn't seem appropriate necessarily for the chamber executive, the CEO, to say, okay, board, here's how you do this, when they work for the board. So there's this weird dynamic where, yes, they need that training and development, but how do you provide it, and who is best suited to do that?
Yeah, we have it's a 3-hour board development course that we do with the board of directors. And we kind of actually separate the board and the staff, and so that they make sure each one knows what the role is. And then we actually bring them back in the room after each one of them has their session. I will tell you, as a resource, Brandon, I am a big fan of Bob Harris. He's an IOM teacher.
Yeah.
He's the one that pretty much put the saying, I've got it up on my whiteboard here: board governs, staff manages. Bob Harris, had the absolute and utter honor of meeting him in my first IOM class at Villanova University. It was like a celebrity sighting for me. I have stolen so much information from him over the years. I felt like when I met him, I was going to have to tell him that I've stole so much information from him. And he said, "That's absolutely awesome. I'm so glad that you have." He's kind of the developer and mastermind of how a board and staff should operate. He's got some really good information even on his site. He's got a great approach, a simple teaching method, and I've used a lot of his points in my training when we sit down and talk about the role for the board, the role for the staff. He just makes it really simple, makes it really easy. It isn't complicated, and I think it's very, very effective. I learned it early in my career. There is a lot of confusion out there. Some board members, they have no board training whatsoever. They're just volunteers in the community, and they come on to a chamber board or whatever nonprofit board, and they really don't know exactly what their role is.
Yeah.
And I will also say the same thing to new executive directors coming in who maybe this is their first time in the nonprofit sector. This is their first time, obviously, being in a chamber boardroom, and they don't know how a board meeting operates. And so we have just as much to train our new chamber directors as we do board development.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know Bob Harris? Have you heard of Bob?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in rooms with him at different trainings. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's fantastic.
he is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I might as well call him Michael Jordan because that's how I think of Bob. He is in our world, he's a superstar, man. He's a celebrity.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Great plug for him. Well, Matt, I like asking everyone I have on the show on behalf of the listeners who are trying to take their organization up to the next level. What kind of tip or action item might you share with them as they strive towards that goal?
Yeah, I think it's narrowing down those top 3 priorities for your chamber of commerce and then putting it in order and making sure that you actually put together a strategic plan. A strategic plan that has benchmarks, one that you don't just design this strategic plan and it's set somewhere. You need to run parallel with that strategic plan and those initiatives. And and then I think obviously the big thing is that continue to get your board of directors as well as your staff, and then everybody in your community that is a viable entity with your chamber of commerce together at least one time a year, and maybe it can just be open discussion on the needs of the community, what the community business community is struggling with, and get that feedback because those are the things that are going to drive you. You can't drive in the dark. You got to know where you're going. And the only way you're going to do that is you're going to have to find out. You're going to need to bring your community leaders, your business leaders together, and then carve out your path. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things I learned early in my career is don't drive in the dark. You need to get your business leaders together. You need to hear from them, and then you decide, okay, now this is where we're going. And I think that's a huge impact. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we look to the future of chambers of commerce, how do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
I think our chambers are going to start collaborating a lot more with their economic development, their CVBs. I think we're seeing a trend here where many of them are starting to be housed underneath one roof. And I know that could be a trend that's short lived, but I am starting to see the effectiveness of those entities coming together under one roof. And I know that it may not be, let's say, 4 or 5 chambers merging together to become one chamber, which we've seen a few of that.
Yeah.
Do those happen in our state as well when there's a very rural state county in our state and maybe 2 or 3 chambers come together as one. But I do think that I'm seeing the combined resources, effort, and that's putting your priorities together and straight with your chamber, your CDB, your economic development agencies. And I think I see that being more of a future evolving state of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah. I see a lot of wisdom in it when it can align,
Yeah,
when
and
those
that's not easy
incentives
to
are
do,
aligned.
but we've seen some really good success stories over the past several years coming out of COVID here in our state, and they're operating very efficiently.
Yeah.
And they're not easy to construct, but the more construction of these entities, the better path we can show other communities of how they did it.
Yeah.
And they can be a model. Anyways, that's my futuristic uh,
Yeah.
uh, path for what chambers are going to look like in the future. I think there's going to be more collaboration and merging.
I like it. Well, Matt, I wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to share any contact information for listeners who might want to reach out and connect and learn more about your approaches and things you've shared. Where would you point them?
Absolutely. You can always find me online. Our website is chamberprosohio.com. I am on LinkedIn. I would be glad to connect with you on my LinkedIn page. There's a lot of Matt Owens out there in the world. So I'm the Matt Owen with Chamber Professionals Ohio or the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. And then my email address is mowen@ohiochamber.com.
Perfect. We'll get all that in the show notes and hopefully link the right LinkedIn account so people can find you easy that way. Matt, thank you so much for setting aside some time and spending it with us here on Chamber Chat Podcast. I appreciate your insights and experience and encouragement to those that are here listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do again, Brandon. Thank you so much for this podcast.
If you are a chamber professional, be sure to subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast on your favorite podcast app or now on YouTube. so you never miss a new episode. New episodes are released each week and delivered right to you. If you're finding value in the podcast, please take a moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. It really helps others discover the show. And most importantly, share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues in the industry so we can continue to grow and strengthen the chamber community together.
This episode is brought to you by Riverside. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast for your chamber or your business, one of the biggest challenges is recording high-quality audio and video, especially when you and your guest aren't in the same room. Riverside is the platform I use to record every episode of the show. It gives you studio-quality audio and video right from your browser, automatically backs up your files, and even creates clips you can use on social media. It's designed to make podcasting simple and professional without the headaches. If you're ready to launch your podcast or upgrade your recordings, head over to chamberchatpodcast.com/riverside to get started today. Again, that's chamberchatpodcast.com/riverside, the same tool I trust to bring you these conversations every week.